Joe Biden's decision to run for president again was a catastrophic mistake. It just was. And he and his inner circle, they refused to believe the polls. They refused to believe he was unpopular. They refused to acknowledge until very late that anyone could be upset about inflation. And they just kept telling us that his presidency was historic and it was the greatest economy ever. We just heard him again say that it's the greatest economy ever. Clearly, 70, 80% of voters don't believe that. They don't believe that about their own personal financial situation, but they just keep telling us that. And then after the debate, the Biden people told us that the polls were fine. And Biden was still the strongest candidate. They were privately telling reporters at the time that Kamala Harris couldn't win. So they were shivving Kamala Harris to reporters while they told everyone else, not a time for an open process, and his vice president can't win, so he's the strongest candidate. Then we find out, when the Biden campaign becomes the Harris campaign, that the Biden campaign's own internal polling at the time when they were telling us he was the strongest candidate showed that Donald Trump was going to win 400 electoral votes. That's what their own internal polling said.
There were polls showing 80% of voters thought Joe Biden was too old to get a second term before the debate. And then we all watched the debate. And then in the last few weeks, Biden was campaigning and he said, we need to lock Trump up. He created a controversy over whether Trump supporters were garbage. He said, the weird thing about slapping Trump on the ass. Like his moments on the campaign trail weren't flawless either.
You cannot.
It's absurd.
It's absurd. I'm trying to be generous here.
I'm not. I'm done being generous.
I want to stay for the record. I also think all the TV money ads should be.
It should be rethought too.
All right, guys. So we got to talk about Joe Biden, who is almost on his way out. And I cannot wait. I cannot wait till this man is out of office, because it seems as if he is suffering through late stage dementia, right? That is the only explanation I have at this point, because Joe Biden is coming out and just saying things that are flat out delusional. Okay. Like, for example, in a recent interview, Joe Biden claimed that had he stayed in the race, the presidential race, he could have beat Trump. Okay. And Joe Biden actually lashed out today when asked a question by a press reporter about whether or not he regrets dropping out of the presidential race and letting Kamala Harris take over. And that is when Biden reiterates this delusional claim that he could have and would have beat Trump had he stayed in the race. And he also makes an even more delusional claim, which is that Kamala Harris could have or would have beat Trump, even though Kamala Harris did beat Trump. She just lost, right? But in Joe Biden's decaying mind, he believes otherwise. Take a look.
Mr. President, do you regret your decision to run for re-election? Do you think that made it easier for your predecessor to now become your successor?
I don't think so. I think I would have beaten Trump, could have beaten Trump, and I think that Kamala could have beaten Trump, would have beaten Trump. It wasn't about... I thought it was important to unify the party. And when the party was worried about whether or not I was going to be able to move, I thought even though I thought I could win again, I thought it was better to unify the party. And it was the greatest honor in my life to be President of the United States, but I didn't want to be one who caused a party that wasn't unified to lose an election. And that's why I stepped aside, but I was confident she could win.
You think she should run again?
What your assessment is?
Yeah, so you see that, you heard that. Okay, Joe Biden is making an argument that the only reason he dropped out is because the party wasn't unified. Now, again, let's just break this down logically, okay? Why wasn't the party unified behind Biden? Okay, because usually an incumbent, the party will unify behind the incumbent because the incumbent has the best chance of winning. Okay, it is the path of least resistance. Now, again, this wasn't before the Democrat primary. This was after the Democrat primary. Okay, the reason why the Democrats were not unified behind Joe Biden is because they thought that he would lose. Okay, and Biden's own internal polling allegedly showed that he would lose to Trump by 400 electoral votes, that Trump would legitimately have a Reagan-esque landslide victory over Joe Biden, okay, if the election was held when he dropped out of the race, when Biden dropped out of the race. So we know for a fact that Democrats certainly thought that Joe Biden would lose, because if they didn't think that he'd lose, if they thought he actually had a chance of beating Trump, that he would have and could have beat Trump, he would have stayed in the race, because they were hell-bent on hiding his mental deterioration. It wasn't until it became clear to the world that Biden is mentally deteriorating, that's when they decided to jump in and say, okay, you have to bow out because we can't lie to the American people anymore without further damaging our credibility. And it's statements like this that, in my opinion, show that Biden is mentally deteriorating, because only an individual with brain rot going on would say something like this. I mean, this guy really said with a straight face, I coulda and woulda beat Trump. Come on, Joe. I don't even think he was prompted to say that. He just said it. But hey, Joe Biden's angry, right? He's upset and he was forced out. He's probably still mad at Democrats, Obama, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, etc., for pushing him out. So he may just be lying. I hope he's lying, right? I really hope he's lying, because if he's not lying, if he legitimately feels that way, 25th Amendment right now, right? This guy cannot continue to be in office with this kind of delusion going on, right? No, it's just not acceptable. It's just not. But something tells me that he's not just lying, that he may actually really believe this, because he claimed that Kamala Harris coulda and would have beat Trump, when we know for certain that Kamala Harris would not have beat Trump, because she didn't beat Trump, right? She lost. But see, Democrats keep putting out this conspiracy theory that, well, the only reason that Kamala lost is not because she was a terrible candidate who couldn't answer any questions and was running away from the media. No, it's not that. She didn't have enough time, right? That and racism, okay, and sexism and bigotry. But yeah, she didn't have enough time. She only had 100 days. She did the best that she could. However, the problem with this theory is that there's no data to back this up, right? The polls show that the first month of Kamala Harris's campaign, that is when she was the most popular. And after that first month, when Kamala Harris actually started to do interviews, when she started to expose herself to the public more, when she stopped hiding and people could actually try to get to know her, the more that they disliked her, which suggests that if Kamala Harris was in the race for longer, had she gotten into the race earlier, she probably would have ended up losing to Trump by more than she did. Okay, so under no circumstances would Kamala Harris or Joe Biden have beat Trump, right? It was over, right? The fact that their administration was the worst administration of the 21st century, and it's not even close, okay? Worse than Bush, right? Worse than Bush. That sealed the deal for them, okay? That sealed the deal. So again, Joe Biden's claim is so delusional, okay? It's so out there that even CNN is roasting Joe Biden for this ridiculous claim. Take a look.
Okay, Joe Biden in his exit interview with USA Today claims that he could have beaten Donald Trump had he stayed in the race. So this begs the question, could Biden have won the 2024 election had he stayed in the race? Truthfully, I categorize his statement as flat out bonkers. Why do I say his statement is flat out bonkers, that he could have won the 2024 election had he stayed in the race? Just take a look here. The road to 270 electoral votes, Trump versus Biden, based upon polling when Biden dropped out of the race. Look at those Great Lake battleground states. You know the ones I'm talking about: Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. Donald Trump ahead in all three. How about here in the Southeast, North Carolina, Georgia? Again, Trump leads. How about here in the Southwest, Nevada, Arizona? Again, Trump leads. But it's not just that Trump was ahead. He was ahead by a lot in these key battleground states. Again, when Biden dropped out of the race, let's take a look at the polls in the Great Lakes. What do we got? 3, 4, 5-point leads in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania for Trump. A lot of red on this side of the screen as well. Georgia, North Carolina, Nevada, and Arizona. Those key Sunbelt battleground states, 5, 6, and 6-point leads. My goodness gracious. Of course, this is just 1 point in time. I know that's what Joe Biden would like to argue. So let's look at the entire 2024 campaign. Days Biden led Trump in 2024 when Biden was still in the race. Get this, 0, nada, no days was Biden ahead of Donald Trump. Now, of course, we look at 1 point in time. We'll look at when Biden was still in the race. What would have happened if Biden had stayed in the race? Is there any record of candidate as unpopular as Joe Biden winning? Look, Biden's net approval rating on election day, minus 19 points. Look at this. 0 of 6 incumbents reelected with a negative net approval rating. The bottom line is this. Joe Biden was behind. He had always been behind, and he most likely would have stayed behind. And that's why I categorize his statement that he could have won the 2024 election as flat out bonkers.
Yeah, if you're a Democrat and CNN is saying that a statement that you made is bonkers, best believe that it is legitimately a crazy statement. It is an insane statement, okay? Because CNN, they don't typically say things like that about Democrats, right? They won't criticize Democrats like that. But again, Joe Biden's statement was so outrageous that even CNN is like, nah, buddy, we can't co-sign this, okay? We can't get behind this, okay? We can't defend this. But see, the unfortunate reality for Joe Biden is that despite him dropping out of the race to save his legacy, because that's the real reason he dropped out. He dropped out because he didn't want to be blamed for Trump winning, because that's what was going to happen. Okay, the Democrats were going to throw Joe Biden under the bus had he stayed in race. They were going to guarantee that he lost to Trump, right? That's what they're going to do. They were going to pull out all the money and they weren't going to support him. That's why he dropped out. And had he stayed in the race and he lost to Trump, they would have basically said that Joe Biden is the worst president in history. They're probably still going to say that, right? Because they're upset about the way that they feel like Joe Biden basically tanked Kamala Harris going into the election with all the things that he was saying. Okay. Also, him pardoning Hunter Biden and some of the things he's done after the election as well to indicate that Democrats aren't necessarily happy with Joe Biden. But the unfortunate reality for Joe Biden is that he essentially dropped out for no reason, right? I mean, he dropped out to save his legacy, but his legacy is still going to be tarnished. Right? He's still going to go down as the worst president of the 21st century. And as I've said before, and I'll say it again, I find it hard to imagine a president over the next 70 or so years that is going to be worse than Joe Biden. Right? So at this point, Joe Biden is definitely not a Mount Rushmore president, which is something that Nancy Pelosi claimed after Joe Biden dropped out, that he was a Mount Rushmore president, which made no sense at all. Right? If Joe Biden is a Mount Rushmore president, why the hell did you make him drop out? Okay, makes no sense. Yeah, he isn't going to have the legacy that he thought, right? Now, had Kamala Harris won, they would have legitimately tried to make Joe Biden one of the best presidents ever, okay? At least one of the best one-term presidents ever, because they would have said, well, he's the president that took down Trump, right, that, you know, allegedly won in 2020, right? Asterisk there. And then, you know, they'd say that, well, he selfishly dropped out and allowed a black woman to become the first president. Right? Yeah, I mean, had Kamala Harris won, they would be talking about Joe Biden in a much different light, okay? But he dropped out and Kamala didn't win, and his legacy is tarnished, despite the fact that the whole reason for him dropping out was to save his legacy, right? He certainly did not want to lose to Trump and then be the guy that decided to stay in the race and to allow Hitler to become president again. But unfortunately for them, the guy that they claim is Hitler did win. And in fact, Joe Biden is on pace to leave office less popular than Trump after January 6th. Okay. So I would definitely say that the lowest point in Trump's first term was definitely after January 6th, 100%. Biden is leaving office less popular than that. That's really bad. I mean, that essentially solidifies that, Biden's going to go down as not only one of the worst presidents in the history of this country, okay, certainly the worst president of the 21st century, but also one of the least popular presidents ever in this country. Yeah, so again, you know, Joe Biden can continue to live in la la world and, you know, bask in his delusion and cope, but the numbers are the numbers, man. The American people have spoken, and unfortunately for Joe Biden, his legacy is permanently tarnished. Again, it is probably one of the worst legacies that we've ever seen for a president, period. And that's just something that Joe Biden is going to have to live with. So, hey, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.